From Shea Stadium to the Whitney Young housing projects, this former New York Mets player is cleaning up in the housing business. I'm Chris Valerio, and this is Venture. Welcome to Venture, the world of small business and big ideas. We welcome Mr. Vaughn to the program.
Once upon a time, he was one of baseball's feared sluggers, earning millions of dollars over a 12-year career with Boston, L.A., and New York. Now, Vaughn is taking the fairy tale to those with smaller bank accounts. Vaughn has parlayed his on-the-field success off the field as the principal owner of a real estate development company called Omni New York. He co-founded it with his attorney and business partner, Eugene Schnurr.
I feel my New York experience was great. Of course I wanted to go here and play much better than I played, but I parlayed my position in New York as a ball player into a great redevelopment company.
Since retiring in 2004 after 2 injury-plagued years with the New York Mets, Vaughn's company has worked with 2,700 units of affordable housing in New York State, more than half of those right in the New York metro area.
We buy, we rehab, we own, operate, manage, we do the construction. It's a full day's work.
Vaughn has expanded into other parts of the country, adding 94 units of affordable housing in Wyoming and more than 400 units in Massachusetts. But even as his company grows, the communities that he's invested in the most are the ones being hit the hardest by the housing crisis. In New York, where the default rate is double the national average, the worst hit communities have a majority of Black and Latino owners. As the housing market tests its bottom, the question is whether Omni and Vaughn can continue to navigate record mortgage delinquencies and foreclosures to create fields of dreams for families being shut out of the game.
I'm Vaughn with us today. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you just got back from vacation, so we appreciate the time, Mo. So let's start off talking here. First off, I have to say, legend in baseball here. You got the MVP with the American League in 1995. What did you think you'd be doing at that moment 10 years later?
I honestly thought I would still be playing ball. I had to retire in 2003 due to a bad knee injury. But I figured in 1995 we'd be playing 18 plus 20 years, but, it was cut short after 12 or 13. But without that, we wouldn't be here. Sometimes things happen, but I'm in a different place now, in a different business now, and very, very happy where I am.
So here's a question. You decide to retire, and you think, I'm going to go into housing. Why did you choose affordable housing? Why not get into luxury housing? Why get into housing to begin with?
When I wanted to do something impactful. I was only 34 years old at the time, and I really wanted to make a difference. And I felt that, coming to New York, getting out the way that I did, I really owed, the city something to give back for bringing me here. I found this idea out in the Midwest called, affordable housing. I brought it back to my lawyer, who was now my partner, Eugene Schnurr. And we were able to come up with our first deal in 2004. And since then, everything has snowballed. We've been very, very successful doing a lot of different things, in the city, also in the outskirts, also in pretty much like the Northeast area. So we've been able to do a lot in a very, very short time.
Now, we're going to talk about a lot of those things that you did, but again, just to kind of bring in your childhood, but you didn't necessarily grow up, in a rough area. You grew up in Connecticut. You had attended prep school. So why did you, again, decide this is what I want to dedicate? Essentially, that's what you're doing. You're dedicating your life to that after baseball.
Well, I think it's a great thing, and I also think it's a very, very necessary thing. Affordable housing is very much needed right here in New York. It's unbelievable. There's over 300,000 plus units of affordable housing that need to be developed. And also, it's in the way of giving back. Don't get me wrong, we are a for-profit company, but we're doing something that everybody wins. The city wins, the people win, and our company wins at the same time. So there's very, very few things you can do that can happen, but this is one of them.
You mentioned your partner, Gene. Schnur, I was reading up, he's from Russia, and he moved to Brighton Beach at the age of 7. What about, obviously you'd worked with him before. He was your agent or your lawyer, I believe. Is that correct? But how did you guys decide, you know what, we can work together, we can make a business together. Let's do this.
I was doing small deals in New York with Gene as he was my lawyer. And one thing that was great about Gene, he would shoot you straight about what was real. We developed a relationship. And I felt that, you know, with his smarts, he's such a smart, intense guy, you know, works tireless and endlessly. I thought who would be better to go into business was with him.
And he got to tell you how to, like, be a businessman, right?
He taught me the ins and outs of business 101, whatever you want to speak. How to be prepared in the morning, how to get up, you know, in business hours, make the calls, follow up. Be on time, be on point, be ready, look the part, dress the part. Everything that I've learned about being in this business and doing things to be productive, I've learned from him. So I just thought, you know, who would be a better guy to get involved with.
What was the hardest part of the transition into becoming a businessman in this sense of the matter?
Being humble about the fact that sitting in meetings and really not learning the business, actually sitting down with people, as an athlete, trying to gain the respect that, you know, I'm not just a face or a name in the company, that I want to be president and be held accountable, that I'm going to be here every day. But I tell you, all agencies from the city, HFA, HUD, all the agencies in affordable housing let me do that, and we're, you know, very good.
Vaughn joining us, the co-founder of Omni New York. Stay with us. Welcome back to Venture. I'm Chris Valerio. We are honored to be today with Mr. Vaughn. He is the co-founder of Omni New York. We were just kind of talking about your start, transitioning from professional baseball player, well-known professional baseball player, into kind of getting your roots and people knowing you as a businessman. So let's talk a little bit about the business. You guys develop affordable housing. I want to mention several of the projects here, which will bring me to one of my questions. One of them, Noble Drew Alley Plaza in Brooklyn,
right,
known back in the day for hundreds that would line up to buy heroin, crack, all those drugs would be out there. You have Redeemer Houses in East New York, is called one of the most troubled affordable housing complexes. The head of the city Department of Housing Preservation and Development said that Noble Drew project was one of the biggest success stories in affordable housing history. So the question being, these are not easy places to redevelop. How do you choose them?
We want the toughest stuff. We think that everybody deserves an opportunity. It doesn't matter if it's a tough property, whether it be crime-ridden, drug-ridden. We believe that everybody deserves a chance.
Yeah, but what are the parameters? When you look into investing in one of these developments, I mean, what are the parameters? Do you have some kind of formula that you're using, or do you literally just go to the worst places in the city and find the worst buildings?
Well, usually places that are in those situations, there are owners that need to get out. They're pretty much slumlords, not taking care of their properties, not doing the necessary things to keep the properties up. So that's our target, you know, that's our sweet spot as a company. So with, you know, you come across Noble Drew Alley Plaza, we went there and spoke with the tenant base. We want to restore pride back into the plaza. Everybody deserves a chance, regardless of where you come from, what you do. Quality of life is one of the things that we strive for, and we start off with security. We secure it up. We bring cameras. I mean, there's 368 units over there at the plaza. There's about 375 cameras. We believe security is definitely better with cameras than with people. And we established, you know, a protocol of living.
And I want to talk about that in a minute, but just kind of to backtrack a little bit, just to those initial, let's go out and buy there. The first one you started, for instance, was in the Bronx. How did you choose that first project?
It was a motivated seller. You know, you need somebody who's motivated, who wants to sell. We contacted them and stroke up a deal. Most of the time, you're not going to get this stuff by a broker. You really have to get on the phone and call and look at HUD and see, you know, what properties really need to be, you know, turned around at that time. That's how we decide what we want.
And where did you get the financing for that first project?
We get you know, government bonds, and I mean government tax credits and city bonds.
So for that first one, you had already looked at the structure and we're going to work within that system. You didn't come with, so did you have any initial money that you ended up putting up initially? Did you have investors coming in initially? Or
it's
was
really
it just
soft money to get the project started. But we really always use, the bonds, from the city and tax credits from the government, and that's how we fund our projects from beginning to end, along with the construction at the same time.
I was looking. Did you low interest loans with HPD, multifamily preservation, right? The low income housing tax credits and millions of the tax exempt bonds. How much was that housing tax credit kind of an incentive to get into this specific area?
Well, at the time, the tax credits, we were getting about $1, for every tax credit. At this point in time, the tax credits we only get about 82 cents, so it's really not a good time to get into the business. But at that time, it was very high and really worth doing the deal.
So has it helped you hedge against this housing slump because you locked in ahead of time?
Well, our housing slump is, it's still a very, very tough market. Now the tax credits are at that, in those 80s, it's very, very tough to make deals work. But somehow, we reduce prices. That's how we gotta get these deals to get together now is reduce pricing and do other things to make the deals work.
I was talking with Greg Jost. He's with the University Neighborhood Housing Program up in the Bronx, and we were talking about these tax credits, and he was saying that he thinks that it's really hard right now, or he doubts that these low-income house tax credit deals are actually being made right now. Have you guys had a harder time making these deals?
Of course. The economic times have hit everybody, but we still are able to complete some deals. We're looking at a deal now in Brooklyn. We're looking at a deal now in Nassau County. So there are deals out there. You just have to really work very, very hard to find them and make the deals work.
So when you work with the government on these types of things, what kind of impositions or restrictions have they given you? Is it different for every building, and how has that played into kind of the business model?
Well, what we try to do is we try to sign extended use agreements once we come in, meaning that we're going to keep this project affordable for the next 15 years. So I think that's the biggest.
Is 15 the cap for all the properties, or is it
that's
different?
Pretty much 15, 20. There's some that are 30, but I think that's what the big restriction is. But for us, this is our business. We love, the business of affordable housing. We're going to be here. We're going to be your neighbor. We're going to be your landlord for that period of time. So we don't mind it.
And we're going to have to talk more about that in just a second. Vaughn, the co-founder of Omni New York. You're watching Venture. We're talking affordable housing. Stay with us. Welcome back to Venture. I'm Chris Valerio. We're joined today by Vaughn, the co-founder of Omni New York, an affordable housing real estate developer, obviously also a very famous baseball player. But we were just talking about kind of your relationship with the government, because so much of what you do is with the government, state, city, even federal housing authorities. So how has what's happened lately, in the sense of the economic crisis and the involvement in the government in so many other areas of corporate America, how has that increased kind of your responsibility, I would think, to, or just the model, the way you go about business? Because you suddenly have a much, send tax bonds that are funding the projects that you're doing. I would think a higher responsibility there.
Well, it's always high, regardless, from the first, for our first unit up to now our 3,200 units we have. It's a tremendous responsibility, because you're actually taking city, like you said, government and federal money to do your project. So the responsibility is
I guess the consciousness is what I'm saying, and the Americans is much more conscious about that right now.
You have to do the right thing, and then we always have tried to do the right thing. It's really never been a problem for us, but definitely when when you're getting government funded, you have to, make sure that you dot every I and cross every T. It's very important.
Have you seen kind of the attitude within the industry, in the affordable housing industry, and working with the government's changed at all since this housing crisis, in the sense of there's been years and years and reports of corruption within the housing authority in this area? So have you seen attitudes change? Because you got in at the top of the market, and now it's falling down. Have you seen anything change in your time in so far?
Well, we as a company have shot everybody straight. We've never really tried to cut any corners, and we've developed some very good relationships in the affordable housing community. So we've been very, very fortunate. I think, at times, some of these agencies, HPD, HTC, like I said, HFA, HUD, they will come to us, with opportunities. And I think that's because of the way that my partner has really stepped up been straightforward, been accountable. We've been held accountable as a company, and I think we've developed relationships. So we've been pretty good on that side.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about just the practicality of it. Because you said you had to learn by going out and actually doing this stuff. I mean, you knew baseball. You had to learn the business side. So talk to us about what goes into taking on a new project. I mean, obviously you have to pick the building, which we talked a little bit about. Then you have to qualify for all that aid. I mean, just talk me through the process here.
The first part of it is actually, like you said, picking the building. And then you hope you have a motivated seller. And along with that, you get your bonds and your tax credits together. Put in your proposal.
What kind of team does that take? Manpower?
We have a great team over there at our office. Our staff is very good. They work very, very hard.
How many right now do you have?
Right now in our main office is about 15 to 20 people, along with all of us. And they're horses. They work very, very well. But once you've decided that project, you got to underwrite it. And that's what that office does. And then you have to go through the municipality. You have to go, down to city council and get, agreement from their council member. Somebody has to sign off on it. It's a big process. It's not like, go buying a house. When you buy affordable property, you have to go through all these checks and balances to make sure it's right. And then once you get to that point, the next thing that you must do is you must go meet the tenants and have a tenant meeting.
And that is something you've been really active in, correct?
We have to do that. As owners, we have gone to every single tenant meeting that all of our properties have come up.
What are these like? What do you try to tell the tenants? What are the questions that they ask?
Well, the first way to tell the tenants that we are not the present owner yet. And a lot of the frustration, which you can understand, is directed towards us, for people living in substandard, horrible conditions. With that, we come there and give them the straight on what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, how the construction is going to take place, the timing of everything, and that we're here to bring a better life. One thing about Omni New York LLC, we're not afraid to put ourselves on the line, and we let people know we're able to be contacted.
Vaughn, co-founder of Omni New York. We're talking affordable housing. Stay with us. Welcome back to Venture. I'm Chris Valerio. We're with Vaughn, the co-founder of Omni New York. We were talking just about how you depend on a lot of the government loans for this. How have the bonds that you guys taken, how has that changed since from when you started to now, the value of those bonds?
When we started, the bonds were $1. We were getting value of $1, to every bond.
Oh, you said now 80 cents.
Now we're about 80 to 82 cents, so it's lowered.
Has demand for them fallen in the sense that are you guys still able to finance what you need to finance?
Well, what happens is the government will decide, and tax credit investors will decide where they're going to, place those bonds for that price, and what environments they want them to go in, cities, and are they going to go in the outskirts or not? But they, have pretty much bought that area down and closed the gap. So really, they're kind of forcing you to be in a certain areas with the bonds where you're working.
Programs obviously require you to have these as affordable housing for a certain number of years. Now, there's been some criticism or some concern, residents, that you're going to turn these perhaps into market rate apartments at some point. Is that in the plans at any point for some of these buildings, or do you have ideas for mixed affordable / market rate apartments, or what's the long-term outlook here?
No, we are an affordable housing company. That's what we are. That's what we're going to be. Any property that we bought with affordability, we're going to keep it affordable. And like I said before, we sign, extended use programs to let people know that when we come and make, to your property as an owner, we're there to say, we're partnering up with you for at least 15 years.
So where's the profit margin here? I mean, why go into something with such a small cash flow for you? And
Volume. Volume is how, you do a decent job in this business.
So how many do you have right now?
Right now we're at 3,200 units. 24 to 26 buildings.
Do you also get management fees or just the development fees?
We have our own management entity, and also we do our own construction entity. Have our own construction entity also. So that's where you gotta own your own stuff. You have to manage your own stuff, and if you do your own construction, you're able to do okay.
Have you had a harder time with residents or making payments?
I think once you do, a rehab to a property and give it some light and dust it off and shine it up, people realize, hey, it's looking good around here. It's going to be better. They're willing to pay. So, no, I think, our tenants are very positive.
Let's talk a little bit about that, the whole idea of dusting it up and propping it up. So you mentioned that security is a big way for you to maintain this, because I would think the hardest part is not necessarily refurbishing it, but maintaining it.
Yes.
So you mentioned the securities. Do you have contracts with companies that provide the cameras? How does that relationship work? And how much does that cost for you guys to maintain?
It's a cost.
Percentage-wise.
We own the cameras. We use Secure Watch 24 as our security company, but also we have our own security entity, of our own, and they balance out each other. But the main thing is that you have to, if someone breaks a light bulb, you have to push that process. And as long as when you make people accountable for the small things, then it stops the breaking of glass, and it stops the breaking of doors. It stops of other things that are bigger. And I think what happens is you have to lean on the tenants and their children about little things, and that stops the big things. And it's not a perfect science. You're going to have issues. But as long as we as a company continue to enforce what we want to go on a consistent basis, it makes for a greater property.
I'm Chris Valerio. Thanks for watching.